problems that face the country, and they fall in your lap, and you are going to have to figure out some way to come together as a generation. I don't mind the debating and that kind of stuff. I'd rather you guys be debating, fighting, and arguing than pretending that there's no issues and just playing on your Xboxes. So the fact that people are only playing. So the fact that there's debate, that's a good thing. But at some point, you've got to figure out how to deal with a mess. You are inheriting from my generation a hot mess. And I'm looking forward to seeing how you guys deal with it. Let me show you three big problems. First of all, you've got to figure out what the next American economy is going to look like. All right? You've got to figure out what the next American economy is going to look like. Why? Because the last American economy is done. It's toast. It's upside down in the ditch. The wheels are turning, but it's not going anywhere. Because it was built on three fallacies that both political parties sold the American people on. Both political parties told us for 20 to 30 years that we could have an economy based more on consumption than production. Both parties said it was perfectly fine for us to ship all our jobs overseas, shut down our manufacturing capacity, and we would have an economy based on consumption. That's how we're going to grow the economy. We're going to have an economy based on going to the mall, shopping online, right? And don't worry about where the stuff is getting made. Both parties signed on to that as a deal. It turns out you cannot go on. So for the last several years, we were actually consuming 10% more than we were producing. You can't do that forever. But both parties said you could. Number two, both parties said it was okay for us to build an economy based on credit and debt, rather than smart savings and thrift like our grandparents. Right? I mean, I don't care who you are. If your grandma could see your savings account versus your credit card statement, right? You would get a whooping or a timeout or whatever is culturally appropriate, right? Right? Because they didn't play that. They didn't play that. Our grandparents' generation, our great-grandparents' generation, they were great savers. They were thrifty. And the idea that you have the credit card bills that you've got and the savings account that you've got, you would be in deep trouble. But both political parties created policies that made it seem that forever and forever we could just stack the American economy up on credit cards, personally and from the government. Right? And guess what? That house of credit cards just collapsed. Right? And both parties are to blame. Third big fallacy. Both parties acted as if we can base our economy forever on ecological destruction rather than ecological restoration. They act like we can just continue to go on clear cutting and with this incredible wastefulness and disrespect of America's beauty and turn beautiful living things into shrink wrap packages and shove them into landfills forever and ever and ever and call that economic growth. Well, guess what? It turns out that there are actual limits. God didn't create any junk. The Creator didn't create any junk. There's an actual wisdom that governs all systems, and there's limits to how much pollution you can put in the sky, how many living systems you can destroy to make strip malls, and how much stuff you can shove down in landfills. And so here you are. Yeah, sucks to be you, right? Right? Yeah. You get a chance to come off these campuses with all this debt into an economy that both political parties and everybody who's 5 years older than you or older designed that crashed. So you've got to figure out the next American economy. Now my suggestion, what I argue is the next American economy is going to be very different. First of all, we're going to actually go from having an economy based on consumption back to production. Back to building things rather than borrowing. Back to making things here again. Right? And that's going to be a big part of what we got to go back and do. Start building for ourselves. We're going to rely on other countries to build for us. So we're going to go back to having a productive economy rather than a consumption-based economy, number one. And that's how our growth is going to work. Number two, we're going to have to go back to thrift, conservation. I don't know how the idea of conservation became some left-wing liberal idea. I mean, I love it. I mean, thank you very much. But I don't think my grandma was some flaming radical. She said, waste not, want not. How is that other than a common ground value? We have been blessed in this country with tremendous resources. Tremendous resources. I don't think it's anybody in a red state or a blue state can have an argument that it's better to waste it than to conserve it and honor it and respect it. Okay? So we're going to move into an economy that's going to be based on thrift, on smart savings, on being efficient. Right? You've got to figure out how to get us there. And also, we're going to go into an economy that's going to be based not on destroying the ecological beauty and resources of our country and of our planet, but actually, not destroying it, actually restoring it. And identifying those entrepreneurs, the innovation, and those policies that will help us better do that. So, you're going to be leading, as young people today, you're going to have no job, okay? Just saying. You're going to have to go out there and create. I mean, honest to a fault, you may have noticed, right? Candid to a fault, you may have noticed. But since you ain't likely to have a job, you're going to have to get out there and create new jobs. Right? You know, it's not about you going out there and getting a green job. I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you that you're going to go out there and get a green job. More likely, you're going to go out there and get a green job.
Yeah.
You're going to go out there and create one. Right? You're going to have to become creative and entrepreneurial in ways that my generation had to do. Right? But as you do that, you're going to be helping to redefine and recreate the next American economy. But guess what? If that was your only homework assignment, you'd be up real late. But it's not. That was just one of your problems. The economy, fixing that, that's just one. They got two more, just as big. Guess what? I'm envious. I am. Guess what? You also get to come off the campus, not at the end of the last failed model for the American economy. Failed in that it ran its course. Put it that way. It ran its course. We're done with that. Got to come up with a new one. You also come out at the end of the cheap energy bubble. You guys were worried about the housing bubble and something. Dad, don't worry about that. Easy bubble. That's a tiny little frosty bubble. That's a little baby in the arm with a little body. Oh my God, bubble. You about to have to deal with a big bubble. Big bowling ball, wait, this is you. The cheap energy bubble that's about to pop. You think, what is this guy talking about? I just filled up my SUV today. Seemed pretty dadgum cheap to me. Do you guys remember ancient history? I mean, you're students, right? Do you remember way back? Now, if you're, business major, the history major, do you remember the graduate student history, the history graduate, do you remember way back to 2008? Remember that? Do you remember that? Do you remember $4 everything else? You said he's like, I remember that. We fixed that problem. If I remember correctly, my friends and colleagues in the other party were so distraught by the $4 a gallon stuff, they would chant the drill baby drill. Now, is, drill baby still? But, I mean, there was a real serious concern. And then it went away. Did it go away because we discovered some big new pot oil?